Hi everyone, welcome to the next video in the NOSS series. So just to give you an overview of where we were, so we are just working on this network, which is 192.168.1.0 network and the 192.168.2.0 network. So we have established, we have set up the network, we have configured the firewalls, installed routing services, we configured a routing protocol, a dynamic routing protocol and RIP. So we established a connectivity between the 1.0 network and 2.0 network, which means all the machines inside this network, in both the networks can communicate with each other. So today we are going to work on how to configure site-to-site VPN. Before that, we have created a Active Directory, a root domain, and a child domain as well. So SDC is in the root domain, which is nitish.nos, and L server is in the child domain, which is ld.nitish.nos. We had managed to establish trust between them. By default, there is a trust between the child domain and the forest domain. So they can access the resources whichever is required, however we want to give the rights and regulations. So in our previous session, we were talking about previous video, we were working on DNS. So we will also try to, we have looked at different forwarders and other stuffs. So yeah, we will try to work on setting up A records for and reverse DNS as well, if possible today. But our main focus of this video is going to be configuring a site-to-site VPN and making persistent connections. Right, let's move forward. So before we go, this is the setup status which we have, and with this setup status, so the SDC is a 192.168.1.0 network, and our L server is 2.0 network. So let's log in into SDC now to check where we are. So the same time, we will also log in into the client machine here just to check connectivity. Because for VPN, we are not going to do anything with the clients, because we are going to focus on a site-to-site VPN. Just referencing to the lecture which we had earlier about VPN. So the main purpose of going for VPN is cost saving, security, scalability, and compatibility. So we have two different ways to configure VPNs, either a remote access VPN or a site-to-site VPN. So we are going to focus on site-to-site VPN. You all know what the difference is. We were discussing that in our lecture session as well. So here, because we are doing a site-to-site VPN, we are going to have set two gateways. So in our network, these two are going to be the gateways for us. So we are going to set SDC and LDC as two different gateways. So the traffic which goes through this so-called public network. So it's a simulation of public network. It's, in our case, it's not a public network, it's a directly connected network, but we assume that if London office and Swansea office are connected through internet, and if you are going to do a routing protocol like what we did earlier, so routing information protocol, which is a dynamic routing, so the communication is established between these two networks. However, they are traveling over a public network, an internetwork, which means an hacker who's sitting in any part of the network, any part of the internet, can just tap in, do a man in the middle attack, or get access to whatever resources you have. So in order to avoid that, we can go for a dedicated private network, which is practically or highly not feasible. So instead of going to that kind of technology, we are going to use the resources which are already available. So we are going to connect using a public network and an internet network. However, we are going to establish an encrypted connectivity, a virtual private network, And through that, even though we are using a private network, we are inside an encrypted, I mean, even though we are connected through a public network, the data which is transferred from between these two gateways, SDC and LDC, between these two gateways, they will be encrypted. They are virtually a private network, so anyone in the middle can't get access to it. So it's secured, right? So which means we need two gateways to set up. So we will be setting up in SDC and L server as well. And then we will try to establish connectivity, right? So this is the advantage of using site-to-site VPN, and it supports different protocols as well. So we will look into it. We are not going to focus on the remote access VPN. So it's a different case where you have you work from home and you want to access one of the resources which is in either a London campus or in a Swansea campus, then you can set up a site-to-site VPN there. Rather than that, it would be a remote access VPN where your laptop or your desktop will be the point from where the security or the secure connection is established and connected to through the internet, which means that in a remote access VPN, we won't be using a gateway to configure. Rather than that, a particular client will be configured for that. Okay, like you go to your machine and enable VPN and then start browsing, right? So it's a similar kind of thing which we do. Right. So with this introduction, we move into our topology, and I could see my topology is coming up here. Um, so yeah, I have my client, I have my server. Let me log into the server. Just now we are going to look at what is the status of our network. So which point are we in? And then later we will start working on the configurations. Right, so we are slowly also introducing you PowerShell scripts, so it will be easy for you to work on your tasks. And I would strongly recommend you to use PowerShells. It's not about memorizing things, or it's not about going into a lot of references. It's about the more you practice, the better it will be like. So uh, usually when you start at the beginning, if you want to go for a command prompt, you go into this and then you search for command prompt in your files here. So Windows accessories or Windows administrative tools, and that's where you find your command prompt, right? Windows command prompt, or you literally go and search here for Windows command prompt, and then so you get it and then you open it, right? So this is one way of achieving it. The other way is to just go for a Windows R CMD enter. So that's another fastest way of doing it. I just go and do an IP config here. I could see I have three networks here, which is this is my external network, which is 10.0.0.0 network, and I have an internal network which is 192.168.1.1 network, and I have a NAT network as well. This network is not necessary, so maybe we can go and disable that network in a minute, right? So this the same way, like we use command prompt in different ways, we also can execute all our tasks using PowerShells, right? So if I want to test a connection, so I'm in SDC, and if I want to test a connection, this is another advantage. Once you have drafted your command, you can keep it, save it and keep it, and whenever you want, you can execute it rather than every time you go and type it, right? So, and also you can have control and space bar to get your assistance, to get help, or here you can search for your commands. Right, so let's go for a test connection. I'm not going to run all the commands here. I'm going to run only the selected commands. So it's F8 or on selection. So it's going to test my connection with this client L. So I'm in SDC, and from SDC I'm just pinging this one or testing the connection with the client here, uh, just to see whether I have a successful connectivity. And it says that it is not, there is no test connection successful. Let's do a ping and see 192.168.2.2. I'm not getting a successful ping as well. It's a request timed out. So let's go to my L server. My L servers here. All right. The problem is my L client is turned off, right? So let's go. My S client is here. So which means the thing why it is failing is this one is turned on. This is on. This is on. This is on, and this one is shut down. It's not in the status of on. That's why it is not pinging. Um, just for testing connections, I don't want to go turn it on, so I just go from L server ping 192.168.1.2, which is my Swansea client, and here we go, we ping, which means the connections are consistent, or we have a connection going on. So maybe from this server I can test connection with 2.1, which is still another network, and here I get a successful ping. So both the networks 192.168.1.0 and 2.0 are connected together. We have a successful connectivity because we are connected using a routing protocol. We used RAP. Maybe you refer to previous videos, we could see that it is a routing information protocol. Right, so you know that it's a routing information protocol, so it's connected on a public network. We don't want to do that, so we go for a private network or a virtual private network. So before going into that, I'm just cleaning up some bits here. I don't want my NAT, I don't want an internet connection here, so I disable the NAT in my server here. And oops, I go in here, network adapter, ipconfig. So always when you are giving a screenshot as an evidence, try to use ipconfig all, so we could see almost all the information rather than giving an ipconfig, right? So here I have my ether network. I'm going to disable that as well. Okay. Right. So if I quickly go and say ipconfig, now I have only two networks, and if I go here and using my PowerShell get my net config, and I'm going to get my configuration here. Right, so I have my internal, I have my external. So these are the two ways in which you can do, either use a PowerShell or here use a command prompt. It's absolutely fine. Right, so let's go on. So if you want to do a remote access, you go and add rules and features. If you want to remove the roles and features, if you, for any instance, if you want to remove the roles and features, you don't see any remove roles and features here. You go click on manage, and here you could see remove roles and features. If you want to remove, you can remove the roles and features. All right, so let's go to my routing and remote access in my server manager. So I have an RIP. I have already configured RIP, so I have an connection established. So I don't want that now because I'm going to configure a virtual private network. So I disable the routing. So it says that if you're disabling, you have some configurations there, and you have to reconfigure it again. Say, okay, it's fine. I go back to this one, go to tools, remote access management. Oh, sorry, it's not remote access management, it's routing and remote access services. Right. I go to this and disable routing and remote services. Right, so which means now, because we have disabled the routing and remote services, if I'm going to test my connection again, I wouldn't be successfully, I won't be connecting. See, it's failure because we have removed the routing protocol. We have removed the routing functions. If I'm now just going to ping 1.2, I can't ping because we have removed the routing. Right, it's still loading on, let it go on. Right, so once it comes up, so we will start configuring the remote routing access.